think it's finally time that I do something about that mess. Now, for far too long have I just ignored this wall of my shop, but all that is going to end, because today I'm going to build a mobile storage cart that's going to clean up most of the mess and give me the ability to get easy access to all of my sheet goods without breaking my back in order to get to it.
Now there's a few design restrictions. I want the cart to sit right here, against the wall, so it has to stay clear of the upper wall rack. And I don't want it to take up too much wall space. I still want these two spots open for future shop builds. So I'm going to limit the cart to the length of a full sheet of plywood. And I still need the ability to get the car in and out of the garage. So I'm going to limit it to 600mm in width. So with all that kept in mind, I came up with this design. It can hold a total of 11 full sheets of 3/4 inch plywood, has storage for full length 2x4s, some additional space for offcut sheet goods, and last but not least, a cubby for all those loose bits and pieces that you think you're going to use in the future, but never do. And as you can see, I still haven't found an elegant way to handle a full sheet of plywood by myself. Now in total, this project will use 3 full sheets of plywood. 3/4 inch plywood would have been ideal, but I already had these wonky 15mm plywood sheets that I wanted to get rid of, so I thought it would be perfect for this project. Now there will be plans available for this cart if you want to build one for yourself. It is also a great way to support this channel by buying one of my plans. It comes with a detailed cut list to make your life easier. Just look for the link in the description below. I start by using my track saw to break down the plywood sheets, cutting the larger sections to size. I then switch to the table saw to cut out the smaller pieces, making sure to label and mark each piece as I go.
Now with all of the plywood pieces cut and labeled, the next step is to make the base that the entire cart will sit on. Now the base will consist out of a bottom panel, some casters and a support frame made out of 2x4s.
Now to build the frame, I will use 3 lengths of 2x4s, or the South African equivalent of 2x4s. Now to make sure the frame fits perfectly, I use the square bottom panel as reference and cut the pieces to the size on my miter saw. The frame consists of 2 longer 8-foot pieces and 4 shorter 20-inch pieces, which will be spaced evenly along the length of the board. Once all of the pieces were cut, I used my pocket hole jig and drilled some holes into each side of the shorter pieces. Since the boards I used were a little bit wonky and a bit bent, I used some clamps to keep them in place and fixed everything together with some glue and 2.5-inch screws. And with the clamps keeping the bottom panel in place, I flipped the base around and pre-drilled some holes and fixed the panel to the frame with 1.5-inch screws. I then removed the clamps and flipped the base over to finish up the base with 6 3-inch casters. 1 caster on each corner and then 2 right in the middle. I added some offcut pieces just to give the middle casters some support. And when you're making stuff, it's always a good idea to do some quality checks.
Now with the base of the cart done, we can now move on to prepping the rest of the pieces. Now some of the pieces need some pocket holes and angles cut into them before we can start the final assembly.
One side of the A-frame, designed to hold offcut sheet goods, will be tilted at a 4-degree angle. Now there's no special formula behind that number. It simply just works well with my overall dimensions and it keeps the sheets securely in place without tipping over. Now I left the shelf and vertical support pieces slightly oversized to account for the angle cuts I still needed to make. The shelves only require an angle on one side, which I will cut in my table saw, and the vertical support pieces needs angles on both ends, so I'll use my miter saw with a stop block to ensure that they all are the exact same length. Once the angle cuts were done, I used my pocket hole jig to drill pocket holes in all of the necessary pieces. And for my larger panels, I switched to the portable jig just to make it a little bit easier. Now most of the rack will be assembled using pocket holes, with a few butt joints for the outer panels. An alternative method for attaching the shelves to the middle divider would have been to cut a dado or a groove for the shelf to sit in. However, since I was using 15mm plywood, I decided against it and also used some pocket holes for that as well. But if I had been working with 3/4 inch plywood, I would definitely have gone with the dado method.
Now with all the pieces prepped, it's finally time to assemble everything. Now I'm going to start by attaching the shelves to the middle divider. And to make it a little bit easier, I already went ahead and marked out where the shelves are going to sit. So the only thing left to do is to use some screws and glue to attach everything.
To attach the vertical support pieces to the shelves, I first applied some glue, kept it in place with brad nails, pre-drilled some holes and drove in some 1.5 inch screws. Once the A-frame was assembled, I placed it on top of the base, checked that it was perfectly aligned and secured it with glue and screws. Next, I attached the side panels to each side of the cart. Then flip the cart onto its side to install the back panel, which will also keep the offcut pieces from sliding off. And to help reduce the friction between the cart and the full sheets of plywood, I decided to line the bottom section, where the full sheets will sit, with melamine board. Now at the time, I wasn't quite sure if it would actually make a difference, but I can confidently say that it definitely makes sliding the sheets in and out much easier. Now to attach the front panel, I flipped the cart onto its side, aligned the panel, clamped it in place and secured it with some screws. Now with most of the cart complete, the final step was to assemble the cubby and attach it to the cart. And somewhere along the way, I made a small mistake, but nothing a flush cut saw couldn't fix. And to give the cart more of a finished look, I covered up the exposed sections on both sides of the cart with some offcuts. Now I have the habit of going a little bit overboard with my projects, and this cart was definitely not going to be the exception. So I decided to clean up the cart by sanding everything smooth, painting the outside panels black, and adding some final touches like my logo, and a set of 3D printed brackets to hold my track and angle gauge.
We are finally done and we can start filling it up with some wood. I'm so glad I made this. I didn't think it's gonna make this big of a difference. I mean, just look at how much stuff I can actually fit on it. And the best of all is that I can just pull it away, take out what I need, and just push it back in again. That alone is amazing. Now, it's definitely not perfect. It is quite difficult to move around, but I think it might just be due to the 250 kilograms of MDF on it. I think if I replace that with normal plywood, it will be much easier to move around. But I'm still super happy with this. Now, if you want to make this cart for yourself, I do have plans available. Just look for the link in the description below. Now, I really want to thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please give it a like. And if you want to see more content like this, please make sure you subscribe. Until next time, thank you for watching.